Welcome. Let's just jump right into this totally fascinating explainer analyzing Robert Greene's concepts. Today, we're exploring a deeply psychological blueprint. I want you to picture human interaction not just as a series of random events, but as a shifting, neon-lit maze, right? In this labyrinth, true influence isn't about brute force, it's about becoming the architect. We're going to deconstruct the exact mechanics of how one person can completely control another's actions, and get this, make the target believe it was their own idea all along.
So here's a chilling question for you. Are your desires truly your own? Most of us think of attraction and seduction as, something purely instinctual or physical. But the source material absolutely shatters that illusion. True influence is about engineering a psychological trap. It's about building a labyrinth so perfectly tailored to the person walking through it, they never even realize they're being guided. They just follow the path you laid out, entirely willingly. Crazy, right?
Section 1. Cleopatra's Psychological Masterpiece. To really understand this, we have to look at where it all began, with the ultimate mastermind, Cleopatra. Now, we often think of her merely as an Egyptian queen, but according to this analysis, she was the original architect. She realized something profound very early on. Physical beauty? That's a fleeting, temporary power. True, world-conquering power comes from absolute mastery of the mind. Think about it. Historically, women were severely oppressed in a male-dominated world where political power was just taken by physical force. A woman's primary avenue to any semblance of power was usually relegated to childbirth, which, in the grand political scheme, only lasted a few fleeting moments. But Cleopatra absolutely rejected that limitation. She essentially invented a system of psychological control, proving that reality is about engineered emotion, not just physical appeal.
Get this. When Cleopatra first met Julius Caesar, he fully expected her to be dressed in traditional Egyptian pharaonic attire. Instead, she showed up wearing Greek clothing. Why? Because she knew his mind. She knew his deepest fantasies and literally became the exact vessel for his specific desires from their very first glance. And the most amazing part? If you look at ancient coins bearing Cleopatra's face, she wasn't even classically beautiful by the standards of the time. Yet through pure psychological engineering, she conquered the world's most powerful men.
Section 2. Your seductive character archetype. To build your own maze, you need to understand the architect's arsenal. But to use these strategies effectively, you absolutely have to use your natural traits. Try to fake a persona that doesn't fit you, and you're instantly going to look manipulative, false, and boom, the trap is exposed. Let's break down the first 3 archetypes. First up, we have the rake. This is the bad boy who proudly embraces his flaws. It works because it triggers this intense desire in women to fix him. You can see this public dynamic perfectly with someone like Bill Clinton. Next is the ideal lover. This is actually a really rare archetype today. Someone who gives selflessly and fills the emotional voids others desperately try to hide. And third, the coquette, the absolute master of withdrawal. Queen Elizabeth I was famous for this. She maintained immense political power by offering love and attention and then strategically pulling it away to keep everyone addicted to her approval.
Moving to the next 3, we start with the charmer. The charmer acts as this sort of empty vessel for others' egos, listening perfectly with eyes that never lie. Then we have the siren. Think Marilyn Monroe. This archetype uses a highly unpredictable contrast, projecting complete innocence on the face while engaging in dark, unpredictable actions. It is literally impossible to look away from. Finally, we have the dandy. This archetype relies on forbidden freedom and extreme boldness. They blur traditional gender lines to project a radical independence, very much like the musician Prince.
And rounding out our archetypes, we have the natural. They combine this childlike, spontaneous innocence with surprising wisdom, making it basically impossible to stay mad at them. Then, the charismatic. The source uses Malcolm X as a prime example here, someone with such an intense inner fire and self-sufficiency that people don't need to be told to follow. They literally beg to follow. And finally, the star. For the star, reality almost doesn't matter. It's all about the projected illusion. Every single subtle movement or stance is a highly deliberate symbol designed strictly for public consumption.
So I have to ask you, which archetype do you naturally embody? There is a vital warning here, though. You must analyze your own traits and use what comes effortlessly to you. If you try to force a fake persona, you just look like you're trying way too hard, and the neon walls of your psychological maze will come crashing down.
Section 3. Piercing the psychological armor. Now that we know the architect's tools, let's explore how they actually shift those walls to trap a specific target. This step-by-step breakdown is where the strategy gets incredibly deep. Step 1. You must observe and locate the target's childhood void or hidden trauma.
Step 2. Because people are naturally drawn to what they lack, you must become the perfect mirror for those unfulfilled desires. But here is where it gets absolutely genius. Step 3. You must also display a strategic, humanizing flaw. If you appear too perfect, you trigger envy, and as the 48 Laws of Power points out, envy creates the most dangerous enemies. A minor flaw keeps your target comfortable.
This brilliantly connects to psychology, specifically Dr. Sigmund Freud. What is attractive is what is unconscious. To truly captivate someone, you don't appeal to their logic. You link your actions to their unconscious, idealized historical fantasies. By mirroring an ancient, revered archetype they hold in their mind, you elevate yourself from a regular person to a figure of myth in their subconscious.
All right, Section 4. The power of insinuation.
Remember, you can never push someone through the maze. The walls have to move silently. The key here is the contrast between noise and music. If you give someone a direct command like improve your look or change your mind, it creates defensive noise in their brain. They immediately put up their guard. But insinuation? Insinuation is music. You plant a suggestion so elegantly and subtly that the target connects the dots themselves. They willingly walk deeper into the labyrinth, entirely convinced that this new direction was their own brilliant idea.
Which brings us to a massively powerful psychological lever, transference. Freud noticed that when his patients lay in a submissive posture on his couch, they transferred their unresolved childhood dependencies onto him as an authority figure. The architect uses this exact mechanism. By paying close attention, you can spot the hidden fragility behind someone's bold, aggressive exterior. Or you might spot the desperate craving for the spotlight hidden within an incredibly shy person. You find that crack and you fill it.
So the trap is sprung, they're in the maze. But how do you maintain this psychological control indefinitely? Because honestly, hooking someone is easy. Keeping him there is the true test of the architect.
Let's look at Section 5, the dark side of control.
Prepare yourselves, because we are now entering the most shadowy, psychological thriller aspect of this blueprint. The transition from initial attraction to absolute, sustained dominance. To sustain power over a long period, we have to turn to Machiavelli. It is better to be feared than loved. The source explains that love is a volatile, ever-changing emotion. You just can't rely on it to maintain a system of control. But fear? Specifically, the deep-seated fear of losing the architect, of losing that one person who fills their emotional void, that creates a permanent, self-sustaining cage.
Let's see how this builds in practice. Drawing on psychologist Theodore Reich's terrifying observation, mothers often conditionally withdraw love to discipline their children. The child internalizes this, instantly believing they must be at fault. Manipulators in adulthood mimic this exact dynamic. They offer intense affection, then suddenly withdraw it to trigger a childlike state of panic in the target. The target, confused and desperate, will then pay absolutely any exaggerated price to restore the architect's affection, firmly locking themselves in the trap. It's intense, for sure.
Finally, Section 6, the illusion of choice.
So we've seen the neon walls of the maze, the shifting corridors, and the traps. Let's bring this all back into full view and clarify the moral weight of these historical and psychological tactics. I want to assure you, as the source material points out, this blueprint is entirely neutral. Understanding the mechanics of manipulation doesn't make you evil. Seduction, at its core, is simply the mastery of the illusion of choice. It's an architectural skill used daily by politicians, leaders, and those in power. Your intent is what decides whether you are building a bridge for genuine connection or a dark psychological trap.
Which leaves us with one final, essential thought for you to take away today. Take a hard look at your own relationships, your influences, and the decisions you make every day. Now that you can see the blueprint clearly, are you the architect, or are you just wandering someone else's labyrinth? Keep learning, stay observant, and we'll see you next time on The Explainer.